Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Mayor of London and the Careers and Enterprise Company and the London Enterprise Advisor Network, we'd like to welcome you to the Benchmark 4 Linking Careers to Curriculum CPD and Workshop. My name is River Ferreira, and I'm with Read in Partnership. Helping facilitate today's conversation and workshop will be Christine Jones, who's also from Read in Partnership, Solly Pombo from Talentino, Malachi Johnson from Elba, Joanna Huxton from the Mayor's Office, and we have two great contributors who will present and share with you today, Spyros Anatoliotis from Lansdowne School, Isolanda Faulo from the John Keats Academy. So let's get started. So the opportunity to be clear about defining what careers is right now, setting a COVID-19 context in your school or college, and what your expectations of curriculum staff are for this benchmark. Embedding careers within curriculum and helping students to understand the relevance of their subjects to future careers will support positive student outcomes and school-college priorities around destinations, engagement, and attainment. This is of even more critical importance this year, as the potential for discrete careers events and delivery may become limited. So our objectives by the end of this session will engage subject teachers in the importance of careers in the curriculum linked to student attainment, strengthen buy-in for careers in the curriculum and careers activities at SLT and with subject teachers, use tools to help students understand the wide range of careers accessible through their subjects, including SEND and AP, identify top tips to support effective implementation of careers in the curriculum, and map careers activity across the curriculum by identifying gaps and examples of good practice. So to begin our workshop today, we want to make this interactive so we can share best practice. We will have a breakout room for approximately 8 to 10 minutes. Oh, that slide just changed on its own. Wow. How has your school or college implemented Benchmark 4? So that's one of the things to discuss. And number 2, what have been the successes and challenges?
So briefly, do we want to ask if any of the ECs want to share briefly what was some of the key points, maybe in 15 to 30 seconds of their breakout rooms?
Yeah, of course. So I'll speak for my breakout room. We had some really good discussions. Some of the themes coming out was using National Careers Week to get subject teachers to relate to careers within that week and using that week as a subject for Benchmark 4. Using LMI data, so incorporating that into lessons such as maths as well. To touch on some of the concerns and issues with it, we had consistency across all departments. So making sure everybody has the same approach and everybody's buying in. As someone mentioned in the chat, sometimes STEM is a lot easier than other subjects as well. And also some teachers seeing it as an additional workload, and that really does need to be driven by SLT. So that was some of the stuff from our group.
Thank you, Alex.
I can share some of the stuff from our group as well. We had some really interesting ideas, actually, and quite creative ideas, what I really liked. We had one particular school at Bridge Academy who were creating like mini Seville and mini Paris. And they're relating that back to their Spanish and French subjects. And essentially it was like a made up mini country where they would go to a cafe and they will order things in those languages, and they will relate the curriculum back to them, which I thought was a really good idea and a really creative idea. We also had another school that talked about the employer engagements that they have had and the links that they have had, and they would get a speaker in to talk about, for example, what their role is, let's say a lawyer, and how the certain subjects in the school would relate to that particular role as well. And then we also had somebody else who really spoke about, had a really interesting idea. It's a funding that they received, and it was a forest school that they built within the school. They are an alternative provision, and how they use that to be able to relate into Benchmark 4. And that's all from us.
Excellent. Any other groups would like to share something from their chat?
Hi, River. I'm happy to share. So breakout room 8. So We heard from Chrissy Niles Isleworth. She has what she calls Compass Talks, where she has a theme day once a month where she links careers to particular subjects. She holds what they call a Motivate Monday, where she hosted something in assembly, where she used an alumni, including LMI in that session as well. So trying to incorporate the different elements of the benchmarks within that. Kira in our room as well, also looking at incorporating the benchmarks. So she's looking at both benchmark 5 and 4. So taking the employment engagement focus and putting that into benchmark 4. So she's looking across the year groups, identifying one lesson per year per subject, then matching employers with those subjects to sort of bring in how did they use that particular subject in their career. So she was using examples of NASA, a sound engineer coming in. She's got P&O ferries coming in to look at maths, how they use coordinates, done in sort of a Q&A style. So, you know, some great ideas. In terms of challenges, I think everyone probably agrees the same. It's attendance, the amount of time planning these activities, how to look at the impact of those activities, and overall the other priorities to careers within school.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen.
Okay. So we're looking at purpose here, and River, if we could, yes, we've got slide 4 there, that's great. Really, this is looking at the various purposes and looking at whole school responsibility in a similar way to safeguarding. Careers education really needs to be shared by everybody, and I think we've said that in the discussion earlier. Basically, a careers leader can't achieve this by acting alone. It's not just a standalone subject, and it's a shared aim, really. And I think I'll go through to identify how we see that's a shared aim. And it's about creating a culture of learning, I think, that allows students to see the relevance of careers to the world of work and thinking about their future. And so it's imperative as part of developing the individual student that this is a theme that's threading through the whole school and creating that culture of learning so they can see the relevance of work, and it encourages them to develop their own personal future goals. There's some research from the Education and Employers network that shows encounters with the world of work, such as through meeting employers, can change attitudes of students and can encourage them to study harder. So that brings the purpose to connect with the school's purpose. So actually, the focus on careers is helping the school as well as the students to achieve their aims and improving academic achievement. If the students can see the relevance of it, they can see that it's going to affect their future. What the study from Education and Employers in 2019 is finding that it helps to change attitudes of the students towards their studies. And then thinking of purpose 2, obviously the government wants every school to do this. So it's looking at the Gatsby Benchmark criteria being a gold standard for careers, and the expectation that all teachers should be involved. It's part of this threading it right through the work of the whole school so that it's not seen as an extra. And that's really what Benchmark 4 is looking to cover. And then by the time they leave school, the majority of students should have experienced this threading through of careers into the curriculum. So curriculum learning that highlights the relevance of their subject throughout their whole time at school and linking to their future career paths. Purpose 3, so obviously Ofsted inspection framework. If we think about curriculum content, it's looking that it should be ambitious, give all learners the knowledge and the cultural capital that they need to succeed in life. So this is really the importance of making sure careers education is threaded through. And also that the curriculum is coherently planned for careers and sequenced towards cumulatively sufficient knowledge and skills that students can take with them into future learning and employment. I think we'll probably all acknowledge that our learning doesn't end when we leave the school gate. And it's about making sure the students have that habit going with them into their future careers. The implementation of this is through the resources and materials that teachers select, supporting the intent of a coherently planned curriculum with sequencing so that it becomes cumulatively sufficient knowledge. And it's again pointing towards skills for the future learning and employment. The impact is that learners will become ready for the next stage of education. I mean, that's the key measure, isn't it? Those destination data, whether it's education, employment, training. And then a challenging and relevant program. So it's not allowing students to sit back, it's challenging, and it helps to achieve all that we've set out before. And then also personal development and behaviors, attitudes, leadership and management. Again, the educational employers have a report called Motivated to Achieve. It demonstrates how attitudes can be influenced by a careers program where it's rich in world of work encounters, and that can really make an impact on the students. And developing skills alongside academic attainment. So also can be important and fulfilling for the students, and employers value it. So it's important for future careers. So an excellent careers program assists a school's reputation among parents and in the community too. So if we could have the next slide, River, thank you. The impact, obviously, for example, students feel more engaged in their learning. So for example, with STEM related subjects, Engineering UK is working to help with experiences, give students hands-on experience in areas that are of interest to them in the real world. The impact on girls is especially notable. And I think with that type of STEM activity, 45% of them report now that they know a lot about engineering. This is girls, compared to 16% in the overall UK as a whole. So it's making a difference. More important than ever, the context of the programme. If we think that London at the moment has 1.1 million workers at risk due to COVID in their work, and in the 16 to 25 age group particularly, it's disproportionately impacting. And I think we need to prepare our students for their future. And almost 3/4 of school and college leaders last term felt that careers guidance had become even more important in these critical times when there's been significant corruption of the careers program. So it's very important to continue that focus. Next slide, River, please. So making sure we have employer encounters into careers in the curriculum. It's an extension of the curriculum. It brings more focus. So for example, as people have identified in the discussion, it's great to have someone from work to come and speak to students. So let's say geography class, have a turbine engineer come in. They can talk about what it's like working there. They can talk about the realities of the students up if they're interested in that, to explore the role further, find out the qualifications they would need, what's the career pathway, and if they hear things about what they like and dislike about the role, that can help motivation as well. So it could be in lessons, it could be in assemblies, PSHE, and get speakers coming in regularly. So employer encounters, wherever they can be embedded, is really important. Next slide, River, please. Okay, so the idea really is an opportunity to enhance the curriculum and just continue that drip feed through the year of linking back subjects through these methods into careers. And for example, with the wind turbine engineer, how does that relate to sustainability and climate change? What's happening in your local area? So there are all sorts of ways that the subject can link it back to careers and motivate the students. So that's really what I wanted to emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And now we have our special guests that are going to present for us. Solly, would you like to introduce our first guest today?
Absolutely. So I would like to introduce to you Spyros, who is the Assistant Head and Careers Leader at Lansdowne School, who's based in Lambeth, and they are a special school. Spyros has actually been with the school for 6 years, and three of those plus, he has been the careers leader, and he will be presenting on how they implement Benchmark 4. Spyros, over to you. Spyros, would you like to share the presentation, or would you like us to click through?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's fine. River, are you okay if you click through?
Absolutely. I have your most recent presentation. Just let me know and I'll change the slide for you.
Excellent. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be with all of you. My name is Spyros Anatoliotis, and I'm the assistant head, as Solly just said, and the careers lead at Lansdowne School. Lansdowne School is a secondary SEND school. Could you go to the next slide, please, River? It's a secondary SEND school in South London, in Lambeth, and we have currently 140 students enrolled. Most of them fall into the autism spectrum, over 70% actually, and then we also cater for students with moderate and more complex learning, social and behavior and emotional difficulties. The school has achieved the quality and career standards in June 2018, which is almost 3 years ago. So we are due to a reassessment in May 2021. Next slide, please. Thank you. According to that assessment and according to the Compass moderation, we believe that we hit the Gatsby Benchmark 4. And today I will just outline the main arrangements that we have put in place to achieve this. Firstly, we incorporate careers in the long and medium-term planning. We ensure that we map each subject's curriculum to identify areas where a subject can contribute to careers education. For example, science can promote STEM careers, the ICT department help the students improve their online application skills and their research skills, and as well the English department will assist with personal statement writing. We 2 years ago, when the new Ofsted handbook was published, we thought that it would be an excellent opportunity to organize and highlight the career part in each subject. So we organized department meetings and cross-department meetings where we made sure that we don't repeat specific areas, but we also give opportunities for consolidation across the school curriculum. Lastly, we made sure that there's a clear overview of the planning's intent and impact shown in the medium and long-term planning as well. Next slide, please. PSHE is the main subject which throughout we deliver the careers learning. We believe that providing a designated learning time for careers establishes some routine for our students, and then it helps them to increase their understanding of careers matters. It allows the completion of longer projects in the class, and it also allows the teachers to assess the students' learning and then go back and revisit certain areas that require improvement. Then we have sporadic events, career events that target the career's curriculum gaps and the students' special requirements and preferences. The next slide shows an overview of how the curriculum is constructed in our school. The main area in the middle, as you can see, is the PSHE, and this is as I said before, the subject that delivers most of the careers education. Then it is also important the other subjects play a main role in the whole careers learning, and the gaps, as you can see, the gray parts is what we cover with the events. Next slide, please. Life skills are also introduced as a distinct subject with classes that need most practice, or they are incorporated in other subjects curriculum. The students in those classes have the chance to develop their life skills, and more specifically, they can develop money handling skills, organizing skills, time management, self-awareness, and research skills. Apart from the life skills sessions, if you could, River, go to the next one, please. We also provide extracurricular activities, such as the Enterprise After-School Club that has now stopped due to the COVID and the whole pandemic situation. Before the pandemic, the club used to operate with about 10 students, and we used to swap the students around the classes, so we give everybody the chance to participate. They used to make different items like pins, t-shirt, festival decorations, masks, and then they would sell it in different in fairs, in summer and winter fair, in bake sales and other events that we have throughout the year. As this is not in use anymore, in the next slide, River, we are now planning basically to introduce a full enterprise project, which will provide the students with a complete experience of how to run a business. We're planning to include proper job advertisements and job roles, job interviews for the students. We want to offer a dedicated time for enterprise during tutor time in the mornings. We want the students to gain the responsibility for this, and then at the end they will sell their products and evaluate how successful the business will be. And we'll support this by providing job training for the students and entrepreneurship lessons during tutor time again. Also, in the next slide, we thinking that this will also be a way that we can provide work experience to the students, because some of them might not have the chance to have any work experience this year. And we hope that we count a lot on the enterprise advisor as well as the lead enterprise coordinator to support with the plan and the planning and the implementation of this project. And we also definitely require the SLTs, the teachers, the business managers, and the governors' involvement, just to make sure that the project will be successful. In the next slide, another important aspect of Benchmark 4 is preparing the teachers and train them enough to deliver careers education. We believe that the teachers' expertise, the teachers' involvement is crucial. And as I mentioned before, we have involved them into the design of the curriculum, but also we provide training opportunities. We allow opportunity for modeling and sharing good practice, identifying methods and strategies that work with individuals, and also it's a good chance to provide constructive feedback back to the teachers. The next slide, please. Adapting the learning to the students' needs is another area that, as a special school, we need we're very concerned about. We follow a systematic approach to identify the students' individual needs and preferences. So we start a student profile when the students come in the year 7. And then that will include the basic characteristics. How do they learn? What methods do we use with each of them? Then this helps the teachers adapt their lessons. And we complement also this with a vocational profile in Key Stage 4, which aims to identify further key areas for improvement, and it's more careers related than the general student profile. I think this is it. Riva, is there another? Yes, yes, this is my presentation. If you have any questions, please, you're more than welcome to ask them. In the meantime, if you work in a similar setting or you would like to contact me, this is my email address and my name there. Feel free. I would be more than happy to work with other schools.
Thank you, Spyros. That was a brilliant presentation, and especially coming from special education needs and disabilities, great to hear from a special school. I particularly liked how you have these departmental meetings to be able to engage with your staff, and that sort of outside box thinking in terms of the enterprise project because of what's happened with COVID. So thank you very much for that, Spyros. That was fantastic. Has anybody got any questions for him at all?
There is one in the chat. Do students have physical needs such as wheelchair users?
Yes, we don't have many students with physical disabilities, but we have a few. And the extra with that is that we need to, whatever arrangement we provide, we need just to include them, just make sure that they have access to those as well.
So good afternoon, everyone. So just briefly, I'd like to introduce you all to Isolanda Faulo from Art, John and Keats Academy. So Isolanda is one of our very dynamic careers leaders in Enfield and also a teacher. So I'll hand over to Isolanda now to just share some of the things her school has done and some of the ways in which they operate, and maybe even some possible plans for future training.
Hello everybody, so as Malachi said, my name is Isolanda Faulo and I'm at Art John Keats Academy. I will start by saying our school is relatively new, so we started the school from scratch and we are on to our first lot of year 13s who came to us in year 7. So lots of the things we did were embedded when the school was built, and we're actually going through a phase now where we're under new leadership and we're actually looking at how we restructure lots of the things that we have done in school which maybe worked really well when we had a few year groups. And now maybe don't translate as well when we've got a full school. So this is quite an interesting period for us in terms of looking at what our provision has been like and trying to make it fit when we have like a full school with year 7 to 13. I will also start by saying as well that sort of at this point last year, I thought that our Benchmark 4 offer was terrible. And it was actually only through doing an audit mainly with heads of departments on careers in the curriculum that I realised how much we were actually doing without realising it. And I know that somebody in one of our great breakout rooms mentioned about actually lots of these things are already going on and we're just not aware of it as careers leaders. So that's something to keep in mind, that actually maybe more is going on in your subjects than you know about already. So I will start by talking about some of the sort of bigger events that we do before I talk about specific subjects. So as part of our school day, we run enrichment. So it used to be twice a week. And it used to be for all year groups, but going forward, it's going to run for Key Stage 3. And it's basically like another single lesson in the day where pupils get to experience extracurricular things. And this was one way where careers in the curriculum is embedded really successfully. And so to give you an example, one of our Key Stage 4 art exhibition enrichments, where the enrichment in itself is built around careers. So each session would involve pupils looking at a different type of artwork, which then lended itself nicely to them looking at a different role in the art world. They had a local artist who came to speak about her career as a self-employed artist, and she uses hairstyling and beading to make statement pieces. And it actually got me thinking about what Christine was saying about the difference between careers in the curriculum and Benchmark 5. Actually, that's not something I've considered before, but I think actually this art talk was a a really good example of how it was different to our usual career talks, where they might talk more about their pathway and how they got to where they are, whereas this was really specific to a career or this person's job in the art world. And then something else we have, which is sort of extracurricular, are pillar days. And they are basically drop down days where we sometimes focus on a curriculum area. So to give you some examples, me being a maths teacher myself, we run a maths day for year 9 pupils. And the actual aim of this is meant to be for pupils to use their math skills in fun activities. But actually, there's lots of careers in the curriculum that goes on sort of as like a secondary objective. So pupils take part in lots of sessions, and during those sessions, inevitably, they are then also looking at different careers related to maths. So for example, one of the activities is building a marble chute, and that's their introduction to engineering, and they look at engineers such as Dyson. They also have a session on code breaking, where we look at cryptology and ciphers, and we also mention some local colleges that focus on things like computer science. And then in Boolean logic, they are also introduced to applications of computer science. So even though it's not the primary objective of these days, it's a really good way to get careers in the curriculum in without teachers feeling like they need to plan something completely different. It's just adding things to a structure that's already there. And then an improve for us is then looking at how we can make sure, like I said, teachers know to put this into all of these extracurricular events, because it really is most of the time something that is already there and it just needs a little tweak. Can I have the next slide, please? And then another conversation that actually came up in our breakout room was about consistency across subjects. And actually, I think the benchmark talks a lot about STEM, and this is something which in other training sessions I've been to, lots of schools have found quite difficult. And it's really interesting, actually, that lots of you have said that you found this easier in STEM subjects, because I actually agree. I actually think this is also easier to do in STEM subjects. But doing that careers in the curriculum audit, I think the science department I actually wasn't aware of how much stuff the science department was doing that they didn't really have any idea came under careers in the curriculum. So from little things that probably lots of you have got in your schools, like displays. They had a great display where it was like all of the science staff and their pathways. So like what science degrees they'd done or what jobs they'd done in science beforehand. And then that can lead to pupils then going and approaching these teachers and finding out more about it. They also had run lots of science-led enrichments, which led themselves really well to careers. So they had a first aid enrichment, they ran a medicine enrichment where they looked at different medicine careers, and then they had a STEM club. And then it was embedded into lessons. So if you change the slide, you can see that they had, the head of science has created these excellent scientists in the spotlight slides where they talk about different scientists in their careers. And then what I really like about these is that 2-minute reflection where it's actually, and if you skip to the next one, I think that it's even more obvious there with the astronaut. Yeah, so it really makes pupils think, for example, why is it important to continue studying outside of your job, and just makes pupils think about ways to implement and ways to apply what they are learning in their lessons to different careers. Now, obviously, not every head of department is going to be very happy if you ask them to go away and make lots of slides like this. So I think it's about having, and someone spoke about this in our breakout room, having like quick wins and having little things that you have everybody in your departments doing. So it might be, for example, when you are talking about space and mentioning an astronaut that they can go and research, or for example, we advertise lots of talks by speakers to schools. And so something little is, for example, if there is a talk about, let's say there's a talk from a biomedical scientist asking the science teachers where it's appropriate in their curriculum to promote this so pupils can find out more. But then also it's about giving heads of department, and if you have, we don't have them in our school, but if you have like careers champions, the opportunity to, if they want to go above and beyond, to do things like this in their curriculums. And then if you change the slide, please. And again. And then something that we are doing in the future, it was meant to happen in September, but then COVID happened and lots of our training days got taken up by how to keep ourselves safe, basically. But two big things we want to do in the future is, first of all, a whole school training on how to promote careers in the curriculum. So like I've already said, focusing on those small things that staff can add to what they're already doing. But then we also want to have a bigger careers in the curriculum CPD, which is focused on HODs, making changes actually to the scheme of work and ensuring it's embedded throughout. And especially in that breakout room, there were lots of careers leaders from schools who actually appear to do this really well already. So it's definitely something that the schools are doing really well. But I think that's something that we need to focus on in the future. If you've got any questions or anything, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'll put my email address in the chat. And also, I always get told off for talking too fast, so apologies if I spoke too fast.
Sounds like a very thorough presentation. No questions at all. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Malachi, who's going to run through some quick wins. Can we go to the next slide, please? Over to you, Malachi.
Thank you, Solly. So just briefly, I know we're getting to the end of our presentation now. So just briefly, I'm going to share some quick things that we know some schools, careers leaders have already done, and which you may find helpful. So one of the first things we've got there on the slide, you can see is your branding of careers education. In order to raise awareness of students, we need to make sure that anything we do around careers education sticks with them. So sometimes it's a really simple thing. We just need to put some effort into the way we market our careers education, the way we present it to the students. Some schools have done really well in making it sort of thematic, in that there is a central theme which runs throughout all their years, so that students know this relates to careers education, and this is something I'm doing which could support me in looking to a future career. So that's one thing we can all think about, is how do we brand our careers education? Do we tell students that this is helping them, towards, or helping them to think about what careers they may have in the future? For the next point, simple things like discussions. Lessons are often over an hour long. Is there a chance that you could use 5 or 10 minutes at the end of a lesson or at the end of a PSHE class just for students to discuss their aspirations, to discuss what careers that they want to do, and what actually those careers may look like in practical terms? Because having students with that peer-to-peer exchange is a really good way to increase their focus on careers, and maybe help give them some motivation to work hard in their subjects, because it leads to their end goal of a career. Isolanda also touched on displays, and this is another thing which we think is really useful. We've seen schools do it before, where each department, outside of their sort of main department office or such like space, has a jobs using this subject poster. So a lot of young people, they have this fear of, why am I doing Pythagoras theorem? What's the use of it? Maybe a jobs using this subject on maths outside the classroom will help them to understand why learning those things is so important, even if you don't use them day to day, but that certain subjects lead to certain roles which they may not be aware of before. And then we've got inviting external organizations to support lessons. Many of you are already doing this, probably talked to us a lot about Gatsby Benchmark 5, but having that outside support often helps to focus and engage students and give them a little bit more of a new feeling that they can sort of get involved in, especially for younger students as well. They all love visits to schools. And then I know I'm short on time, so just briefly, we've also got subject enhancement days, futures months, setting out particular periods in the school day or the school timetable in which different subjects are focused on, and how those subjects can lead into careers. I know maybe it's a bit late to do that now, but maybe it's even starting to think for next year. what can we get into the timetable that we know is specifically related to careers for each subject. And next we have particular organisations who have prepared activities. We've got 2 there in Equal Engineers and Army Engagement. There's many organisations who are doing similar. And then lastly, setting work in real life scenarios, which helps to expand students' familiarity with different jobs. So those are these sort of enterprise days, project days that many of you will be doing, but they can even be set on a smaller scale in lessons for a couple of minutes, just to give students a taste of what it may be like doing a sort of a real world project scenario or task, but in their day-to-day lessons. So I think now I'm going to hand back to you, Solly, for our next slide.
That's right. Thank you ever so much, Malachi, for that. So I will be talking about supporting resources. I know that we are getting to 4:30, so I will quickly run through these. River, can you go to the next slide for me? Wonderful. So I'll start off with the virtual careers activities for SEND. These are specialist resources that have been recently created. It can be used in specialist provisions and also in mainstream. And it's a full existing guide with resources, toolkits. It can also be a standalone guide or a plan for individual teaching lessons as well. The next one that we have is the SEND Gatsby Toolkit. Now, if you're working to deliver the Gatsby benchmarks for your young people with special educational needs in whatever settings such as special schools, mainstream, colleges, PRUs, virtual schools, or even hospitals, you'll find this resource really, really useful. It has case studies to understand how to implement each benchmark. It also references you can quickly identify what good looks like, and it will help you to contribute to the school's overall career strategy. Just to let you know, before I go on to the next bit, these are all will be available and all the links will be sent out within the slides as well. The next one that I have here is the modelling toolkit. This is a resource to support career leaders with planning and implementation, the approach of embedding careers into the curriculum. We also have the can-do guide, and that's a guide that gives to the career leaders to contribute to make decisions about what consists as good career guidance in the context of COVID and during the academic year. And then we've got, last but not least, is My Learning and My Future. And the aim of the resource is for the students to see the relevance and the value of subject curriculum teaching and learning, and explicitly support in making connections between the subjects and the pathways to positive transition. And there's a really good example in there, and it's in relation to English. The guide actually supports 20 subjects from Key Stage 3 to Key Stage 4. And one of the examples used on Year 8, and it was through a company called Tesco. And what the students did, they explored the process of Tesco's undertakes to draft the perfect advert. At the heart of it, of the task, the importance of drafting was embedded into the students. Students will create their own advertising for fictional roles within their schools, following the Tesco process to ensure that their final product would be fit for purpose. Like I mentioned before, these will all be shared. I will now pass you over to the wonderful Christine, who will be giving you some top tips.
Thank you. What I've done here is just draw out some top tips from the presentations, and we'll include this plus what's come out of the discussion in the materials sent to you. So you'll have a longer set of top tips. There may have been discussions you weren't aware of that you weren't in. So I just want to make sure we've captured those as well. So for example, make each subject and scheme of work, you know, identifying where careers can be linked into it. So it makes it part of the regular conversation. And then check that across departments to avoid duplication, make sure it's being consolidated rather than duplicated, make sure it's got the intent and impact in the plans as well, related to careers activities, and make sure that PSHE is used. We had one example where it was used quite a lot for longer projects, and also keep some gaps in there so you can add things in as the year progresses that students have asked for. Embedding life skills in the careers curriculum, so things like behaviours, timekeeping and so on, very important in the workplace. Extracurricular activities, we heard the mention of having an enterprise club, using enterprise skills in a work experience way by running a club, and that can be given as an example of work experience if students participate. Prepare the teachers, so we've talked a lot about having inset and helping teachers have models of good practice, providing feedback and so on. So a continual element of inset for teaching staff. And then a systematic approach to mapping student needs and preferences. Interesting that in the school that mentioned it was started from the day of joining school. That's probably a challenge, but it's interesting to think about. And also involve your enterprise advisors. So things like the enterprise clubs or the enterprise activity where it's a project. See whether your enterprise advisors can add to that, help support it, bring additional contacts in. So that's it on top tips, and I'll add in more that can be sent out to you afterwards.
Brilliant, thank you, Christine. I am now going to wrap up. So first of all, thank you ever so much for our brilliant speakers. It was absolutely fantastic to have you here and to hear how you are embedding Benchmark 4 into your schools. Really, really useful. So thank you very much to you both. Also, thank you everybody for coming and joining us today. I do hope that the session, that you found the session really helpful. I certainly know that I did from my perspective. Just to let you know, I will be circulating, or we will be circulating an email with a feedback form. Please do click on that feedback form and complete it for us. It's really important to understand what's working and what's not, and any additional feedback that you may potentially have.